Hello, this is Blue Star, Defender of Equestria, and this is another Focus on video. This time, the Wonderbolts, and how they compare to the Blue Angels, and also the origins of the Royal Guard. I must admit, as a fighter pilot wannabe, this is one of my specialist subjects, the Blue Angels. But I think first, maybe I want to get into, let's do this chronologically, that there was two things that we kind of learn in this episode. That first, obviously, we learn about the Wonderbolts. Or actually, first, in a way, we learn about what appears to be the origins of the Royal Guard. That after Celestia banishes Luna to the moon, she basically forms what appears to be the beginnings of the Royal Guard, of what would eventually be the Royal Guard. But that's an interesting thing in itself. It's like, before that, when Celestia and Luna were ruling together, they didn't need the Royal Guard. And I think the answer to that question is pretty obvious, that, hey, they were able to defeat Discord working together, Summer working together, they were simply working together, so they didn't really need the Royal Guard. But now that Luna is gone, Celestia has to do everything by herself now, so I guess she decided that she needed help, she needed a little backup. Because, I mean, we've seen it in Canterlot Wedding. These princesses and these alicorns or whatever are pretty powerful, but they can't take on the whole world by themselves. As I like to say, even Master Chief needs help from the Marines sometimes. As someone whose OC is a member of the Royal Guard, I can't help feel that basically, that this is where the Royal Guard came from, and I'm sure the protective pony platoons are eventually what turn into the Royal Guard at some point. But anyway, so moving away from them and moving to the Wonderbolts, as I've said in a lot of other videos, that the Wonderbolts appear to be based off of the Blue Angels. They're simply the pony versions of the Blue Angels. The Blue Angels basically have the same purpose as the Wonderbolts, it appears. The Wonderbolts they were recruited to basically celebrate the first celestial year of peace, which I guess was the anniversary of defeat of Nightmare Moon, I guess. And the Blue Angels were basically, in a way, brought about for, in a way, the same kind of a purpose. That they were basically brought about to increase morale and show the professionalism and pride in the U.S. Navy Air Force. The point of the Blue Angels are they're a demonstration squadron, they are kind of a recruitment tool, and they are basically used to basically increase morale and stuff like that in civilians and the military. And I think the Wonderbolts serve basically the same purpose. They were literally created to boost morale and to fly at this great celebration and all that, and that was cool. And everyone was in such amazement and wonder that they created magical lightning, and they were named the Wonderbolts. So cool. Moving now into, in a way, the current history, because it's interesting that they've created the Wonderbolts Reserves. Going back to the Blue Angels, the Blue Angels don't have replacement pilots. They don't have reserves because it simply takes too long to train these pilots. They spend hundreds and hundreds of hours training to do the kinds of things that they do, and it's just not worth it to try to train replacement pilots. It's interesting that the Wonderbolts have decided to basically create a replacement flyer team, if you will, or maybe they just want to increase the size of their squadron or something like that, I don't know. I have a feeling that this is probably a direct response to Soren's unfortunate accident, because they unfortunately realized, what if one of our flyers gets injured? What do we do? I must admit, there appears to be at least 6 Wonderbolts, and so during that episode, couldn't they have just called one of the other Wonderbolts to take Soren's place? Oh dear. And I must admit, Soren, you should have been paying closer attention. Your lapse of concentration could have cost you your life. Oh, you should be expelled from the Wonderbolts for that. Because again, this is why I like the Blue Angels and I think they're so cool, is because the level of precision and finesse and teamwork it takes to do the kinds of things they do is absolutely amazing and incredible. And as I've said before, if you have the opportunity to go see them perform live, go do it. It'll be worth it. Just be warned, their planes are very, very, very loud. So again, the ponies have basically decided that, we're going to have replacement pilots. And it is interesting, I must admit, I can't help but think, it's like, why isn't Rainbow Dash a Wonderbolt at this point? She's passed just about every single test that there is, and she's clearly shown that she has the ability to perform at the Wonderbolt level and everything, and it's not like the Wonderbolts don't know that she exists and everything like that. They've directly learned lessons from them, so it does seem odd that Rainbow Dash, in a way, is not a Wonderbolt at this point. But, again, there's still a lot about the Wonderbolts we don't know, that we don't understand, that hasn't been described to us. Again, like, what was Wonderbolts Academy? What was its point? The students were only there for a week. It doesn't appear that they graduated it into a new program. It's like, okay, you passed this week of training, now you can qualify to become a Wonderbolt. Or you can qualify for a Super Wonderbolt Academy, and if you pass that, then you can become a Wonderbolt or something. It was not clear. And to Rainbow Dash's point to why she should have to learn this, well, part of the job of the Wonderbolts, as we see in the best night ever, is that, they're basically there to socialize and hobnob with the big wigs and the big important ponies and VIPs. And so if one of them come up to them and asked, how did the Wonderbolts get started? It would look really bad for the image if they went, I don't know. Ooh. Yeah, that would simply be very bad for the image, because that's also part of their job. And as I've just researched recently, that, the Blue Angels, they not only go around and fly, they do go and, visit hospitals and things like that. So it's important for them to know those kinds of things, so that if people do ask them questions, they have the answers. And as Forward Operating Base Equestria said that, real military personnel do have to learn the history of their particular branch, because it's just simply important to know where they've come from, where the origins of the branch are, and things of that nature. But it was really interesting to see, a little bit of glimpse into the Wonderbolts history and what their ultimate function is, because we don't really know what the function was. It's never been explicitly stated what their job is. It was pretty obvious to begin with that they're like the Blue Angels. They're a demonstration squadron. They fly around, they do shows and stuff. But we've also seen them try to act like a rescue squad, rather unsuccessfully, I might add. That makes sense in a way, because they're not, in a way, members of the military. This is where the Wonderbolts differ from the Blue Angels. I mean, you couldn't just be a civilian pilot and just go up to the Blue Angels and, try to sign up for them. It doesn't work that way. You have to be a member of the U.S. Navy Air Force or the Marines and things like that. So you have to be a member of the military. It appears that while the Wonderbolts originated from the quote-unquote the military, the precursor to the Royal Guard, that they're no longer really members of the Royal Guard, because it's pretty obvious that the Wonderbolts are not members of the Royal Guard, so that's not a requirement. You can just go up to the Wonderbolts and in theory just sign up for them, because obviously Rainbow Dash is not a member of the Royal Guard, and it doesn't seem likely that she's going to do that. I mean, Rainbow Dash could join the Royal Guard, but then again, we don't really know if mares can join the Royal Guard to begin with, but that's getting off topic. But anyway, Rainbow Dash simply doesn't have to be a member of the Royal Guard, and I guess that's good. I mean, it's obvious that the Wonderbolts are really more about flying than they are about, combat or anything like that. I mean, you could say the same thing about the Blue Angels, but again, the Blue Angels are active members of the military. They do know how to fight and stuff. They're not just pilots. You could stick weapons on those jets, and they could go off into combat, and they would do very well. And the Wonderbolts and the Blue Angels have another thing in common, that these are basically the best flyers ever, that obviously getting into both of these groups is very exclusive. And that's cool. I mean, I just love these kinds of groups, because it's just so awesome to see them work together so well and perform and everything. And it's kind of disappointing that the Wonderbolts have really, in a way, gotten a bad rap. That, oh dear, there's been a lot of episodes where they've basically not been shown a very positive light. But in a way, I think it's because of the circumstances of the story. I think also in a way, they're sort of almost in a way, a metaphor for professional sports teams, where it's winning at all costs and everything like that. And that's not good. I mean, and that just seems that, some of these teams, winning is much more important than teamwork and, So unfortunately, that's where that, I think, comes from for the most part. But I think that the Blue Angels and the Wonderbolts are pretty cool. I like them both. And I'm glad that the Blue Angels, in a way, have been inserted into My Little Pony, because I must admit, as a starfighter/fighter pilot fan, it's well, if I can't have, fighter jets in My Little Pony, well, you know what? The Wonderbolts almost make up for that. That's pretty cool. So anyway, that is my video on the Wonderbolts and the Blue Angels. This is Blue Star. Stay strong and pony on. Blue Star out.